everybody that we need.
All right, let's call the meeting to order. Are there any members of the public who have
Rich,
comments?
Do it a roll call first?
Should we actually do housekeeping first?
Yes. Housekeeping and roll call?
Erica, please.
Sure. Yep. Welcome committee members, liaisons, and members of the public to the Legal Services Trust Fund Commission's Executive Committee meeting. Thank you for joining us. We're using Zoom with the goal to foster a more inclusive environment and effective meeting. If you'd like to comment during the meeting, please use the raised hand feature. To use the raised hand feature by phone, dial *9 on your phone's dial pad to raise your hand, and do the same to lower your hand. Please utilize this tool to virtually indicate that you would like to speak in order to help the chair facilitate the discussion. All Legal Services Trust Fund Commission and committee meetings will be recorded and posted to the State Bar website. A friendly reminder that this is a video conference, and please be aware of your surroundings behind you. Thank you.
And Rich, Kim, would you like me to do roll call?
Please.
Okay. Rhinus,
Here.
Savage,
Here.
Schreiber, Vanarelli.
Here.
Okay, we have quorum. I'll do liaisons. Selena, I saw you. Bonnie, are you on? I don't see Bonnie. She said she was coming though, so she'll be on. And then State Bar staff, I see Kim, Erica, Danielle, and I see Kareem is on too. Okay. And Brady said he's going to be joining in a couple minutes.
And Dwan Morrill is on, but she's just as an attendee.
Okay. Meryl, our staff, Meryl?
Yes.
Okay.
And then there's no members of the public on.
Oh, okay, great. So we'll hand it back to you, Kim and Rich, since there are no members of public, no public comments. So we're on 3A,
Okay.
the LRAP proposal, which
Yeah, please report on that.
Okay. So I just have a really quick update, and it's not quite ideal. So at the last commission meeting, and we'll report this out at the next week too. At the last commission meeting at that time, the Senate and the budget had come together with and they do this every kind of budget cycle with a joint kind of budget. And in there was $59 million for LRAP. So we were pretty confident that that was going to happen. It got then sent to the governor's office, and unfortunately he took it out. Or the governor's office took it out of the budget. Right now, where we're at, and that is there's still like junior budget trailer language that can be negotiated. So there's a small chance, not very likely, but still small chance that may be included again. And Selena's on, so I don't know, Selena, if you want to elaborate.
I'm happy to give a quick update on that. To like rewind, I think we made all of the appropriate talking points. We convinced the legislature that LRAP was important. We didn't do any, like there was nothing more we could have done. It's just that at the end of the road there was disagreement between the Department of Finance and the legislature at how much funding was available for the state budget. And this, just like many other very amazing programs, had a funding cut. We are hoping that we can get it through the last kind of baby budget trailer bill that will be coming through. There's at least one more budget bill junior to come through to CARES courts, which is through the judicial branch. And so we continue to talk with the governor's office and with legislative staff about whether or not we could get the state funded LRAP through that last kind of the caboose, the last budget bill junior that will go through. I think I told Dwan and Melanie this morning, I don't think it is likely, but I don't think it's a complete lost cause. Because there is still funding available. They're still talking about care courts, which is judicial branch.
And so
I missed, is it out? Is out for now?
it's out for now. Yeah. It's out for now. So the other thing is, if it doesn't go through, if it doesn't get funded, then we still might try to, somewhere or another, get together some type of small pilot project. We're, still the LRAP working group that's comprised of COAF, the Access Commission, LAC now, and the Trust Fund Commissioner. We'll still like move forward with something, trying to salvage something. Because if we can get together some type of even small pilot project, perhaps next year, in a couple of years, we can say, look, this is off the ground. Can you now put in some monies to grow the program? So we are really trying our best, and then we'll update you. And we'll give that update too at the commission meeting. I don't think we're going to know more in terms of like, we're not going to have some finality next week, but if we do, then we'll obviously provided to the commission. And at some point, we might need to think about, because there were 3 volunteers from the commission to be on, if we were going to do it, to provide some, to be on some like committee, if it was going to be the student aid commission. Since that's not going to happen, we might need to go back down to 2, because all the other entities have 2 representatives. But why don't we hold off on that until we know more like the direction this is going to go in for this year. Okay. So that's the LRAP update. And then the next, Kim, Rich.
Yeah, for foreclosure
proceed.
prevention.
So this is Danielle is gonna present.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was planning to present on consumer debt grant.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm so confused today. I'm sorry. So just a really quick update on the CalFHA. So the projects have started. Danielle now is working on finalizing the reporting requirements with the CalFHA. So there's not really an update. The projects are up and running, and so.
Are we on schedule?
Oh, yeah.
Yes. So the grants went out and the grant period started July 1 as scheduled. The first quarterly reports will be due July, August, September, so early October. So we're just finalizing the last kind of small details, pretty nuanced stuff at this stage, kind of last remaining items with CalHFA in terms of what they need for quarterly reporting, but should be able to share those details with the grantees in the coming week or 2, really. We're just about at the finish line there. So yeah, so we'll be able to have kind of written reporting requirements out certainly this month.
Is CalFHA monitoring what we're doing? They had a representative working with you before. Is that continuing?
Yeah,
Yes.
Danielle has bi-weekly meetings with them. And in fact, it's not just bi-weekly, like they're in regular communication with Danielle and their staff.
Yep, particularly right now as we're finalizing the reporting requirements, I'm in pretty constant contact with their data team and making sure they have what they need for their federal reporting from us and our subgrantees. But yes, we have at least every other week meetings with the CalHFA team.
And are you anticipating a specific number or a general number of responses from grantees? How many do you think you're going to get?
In terms of what? What do you mean by
responses to the RFP?
So these grants are out. So we got 22 applications, and we had enough funding and strong enough proposals to fund 11 of those 22. And so those 11 projects started July 1.
Okay. Kim?
Yeah, I'm not sure my hand symbol is disappearing. Anyway, my question is, with the CalHFA reporting requirements, are we also capturing what we need for, promoting this in the future and all the good work the commission does?
That's a great question. So we are as closely as possible mirroring the reporting requirements for the HP3 grants,
okay.
Both for our benefit and for the grantees' benefit. So they don't have a lot of new data they need to give us, and also so we can easily compare across grants. There are a small handful, like 3 data points that are unique to CalHFA. But we've messaged those to programs kind of as early as we could. So I don't think anything will be a surprise in the upcoming reporting requirements. But yes, we are capturing the same kind of level of data as we do for our other grantees, if not a little more than our other grants. So we should have what we need on our end as well.
Yeah, that's great, because it seems like there's the potential for funding in years to come.
Our data collection is actually like heavy. It might even be too heavy. So at some point we need to talk to the commission about maybe rolling back, unless it's like a statutory requirement, because it's become a really heavy lift for programs and for us. So obviously we want to capture enough to be comprehensive and to report by it, and to fulfill all of our statutory mandates and our contract with judicial counsel. But it is very, very heavy reporting requirements.
Right, that's a burden that has to be balanced with, them applying, and how much is it worth?
Exactly.
Thank you.
Danielle, on the timeline?
Yes, so if we're ready to move on to consumer debt grants, that I do have a presentation and I'm ready to present on a little more formally. And there was a short memo as part of the meeting materials for today. So this should look familiar. But yes, this is item 3C, approval of recommendations, or I'm sorry, approve recommendations for the timeline and delegations of authority for new 2023-2025 consumer debt grants. Right. So I'll do a quick background and then we'll jump right into the recommended timeline and roles as described in the memo. And then there's a resolution for you all to consider. So a quick background, the Budget Act of 2022 includes an allocation of $15 million in equal access funds for grants to QLSPs and support centers to provide consumer debt civil legal services to low income and underserved communities. Of that 15 million, 2.5% is available for administrative costs of the State Bar and the Judicial Council. These funds, the remaining funds are to be allocated through a competitive grant process, so there's no formula grant component. The funds must not supplant existing resources, so this is language we've seen on several of our other grants, but it does exist here as well. And preference must be given to QLSPs and support centers that serve rural and underserved communities. Again, this is language we've often seen with the homelessness prevention grants, for example, and it appears here as well. So that will need to be a consideration or a factor when we evaluate, or the committee and commission evaluate a scoring rubric a little later in the process. And these funds are available for encumbrance or expenditure through December 31, 2025. So we are envisioning and proposing a 3-year grant period from January 1, 2023 through the end of 2025. I did want to also point out that the Budget Act does not actually list permissible activities. So that's something that will need to be determined as part of the RFP that's drafted in the next month or so, as you'll see in the timeline. This language was not in the memo, and this is certainly tentative language at this point, but I did want to put it in front of you and get any kind of initial thoughts and reactions to what that list of permissible activities might look like. This is language that staff drafted with Judicial Council and LAC support and feedback. So we are envisioning that the permissible activities will look something like these funds may be used to provide civil legal services related to debt collection, wage garnishment, and bank account levy defense, financial abuse, protection against unfair debt collection practices, protection against unfair or predatory lending and consumer scams, credit reporting and credit discrimination, bankruptcy, and other debt matters, including those related to student loan, auto loan, credit card, and medical debt. I will pause there and see if you all have any initial reactions to this, but again, this will be kind of a longer discussion when we evaluate and vote on the rubric a little later in the process.
Danielle, Rich has his hand up.
Yeah, of course.
Would financial abuse include elder financial abuse, and would you expect this to extend to probate courts?
So I think that it could include elder financial abuse. I would defer to Dwan and maybe our Judicial Council partners on the probate court question.
Yeah, in terms of like constituency served, yeah, elder, you know, there's not like an age limit or anything prohibitive from this. And then probate court, I believe that's fine, right, Bonnie?
Well, I think that's where elder abuse claims would be heard. I'm not sure if elder abuse fits under
you don't think so?
consumer debt myself, but
Okay.
I'd be happy to take, I mean, I don't think it's what was intended by this statute, but I think other people may have other perspectives on it. I haven't thought about it yet.
Kim and then Selena.
Thank you. So I think that, I mean, reverse mortgages would be an example of something that would fit within here. You know, fraud related to probate matters, strikes me as maybe being outside of this. But I was just wondering on this language with the last bullet, is there a way to tweak that language for our favorite kind of phrase, including but not limited to, for example?
Well, I don't know if we wanted to open it up that, and the list is lifted from our main economic benefits handbook. And so we try to mirror it to the extent what the data we capture and what kind of typical funding it is, but
Okay.
yeah,
So
but I think
financial abuse could encompass reverse mortgages, which is such a popular kind of abuse
and that's
right now.
we probably need to talk about. I mean, this is going to warrant probably a whole meeting because at least when we talked to LAC and Judicial Council, we also had an outside consultant that practices in this area. We purposefully left off reverse mortgages and modifications because there's dedicated funding for that work, and this is what we thought would be more like bread and butter, more like clear cut.
Okay.
But again, that's a policy decision that the commission can decide ultimately.
Okay, thank you.
Selena?
My only comment was about legislative intent, which is, anybody's guess with legislative intent. But when we, to go to Bonnie's point, when we were, making the pitch for this source of funding to the legislature, it was all really related to COVID-related job loss. Now the real impact of inflation on lower income communities. And though financial elder abuse may be a piece of it, that wasn't anything that we anticipated. It really is how are working people suffering because of COVID's impact on their finances. And there may be even some language in the Budget Act about COVID. And this really was
there is.
Yeah, I mean, that was our
There needs
pitch.
to be a nexus with COVID. So I guess my suggestion, because and Danielle will make a running list, because I mean, I came out and I thought that was clearly yes, and you all think that's no. So it is a little bit of a grit. Like, why don't we do a little bit more research, and then that meeting that we're going to bring back to XCOM, all of this can be part of our discussion. And I guess the one thing I would like to encourage us to start thinking about, because that's not on this list and will be a policy consideration that you'll need to decide, is with like homelessness prevention grants and some of our other grants, we allow ancillary kind of legal, like, to be included. The staff thinks for this particular one to not, but again, we should start kind of thinking about that, and then we'll have a fuller discussion at the next XCOM meeting to discuss that.
Great. Yes, and I should have included it in the slide, and I'm sorry that I didn't. That was an oversight on my part. This, I want to make sure I'm pulling it from the right place. But the language does say that this money is to provide civil legal services for indigent persons related to consumer debt matters affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. So it does explicitly say COVID-19 pandemic in the budget language. It's not quite this exact quote, but it's in a slightly different place in the budget, but that's the intention, yes. Okay, great. And so this is the timeline as presented in the memo. This takes us from today through to that January 1 grant period start date. Today, we would ask the committee to recommend this timeline or a timeline and delegations of authority to the commission. And in the commission meeting next week, they would approve timeline and delegations of authority. One of those delegations of authority would be authority to the committee to approve the RFP and scoring rubric. So this is very similar to what we did with CalHFA. Given that shortened timeline, the committee ultimately approved the RFP and scoring rubric for that grant as well. This would allow us to release the applications around September 12th, and then afford 5 weeks for grantees to create and submit those applications for the October 14th deadline. And then this timeline also gives about 5 weeks for the scoring team to score applications. I think what that scoring team looks like and who is sitting on it will be a decision that the committee will need to make either today or at that September 1 meeting where it approves the RFP and scoring rubric. And then the committee would recommend awards, grant amounts to the commission for approval at a early to mid-December commission meeting, which would again facilitate that January 1 start date. So this timeline is very similar to what we did for CalHFA grants. The only difference is with CalHFA, there actually wasn't even time, or there didn't end up being time for the committee to recommend awards to the commission for approval. The committee itself approved the awards, whereas this would have the committee recommending those award amounts to the full commission for approval in December. So I will stop here and see if you all have any questions. Yeah, Rich has his hand up.
Yeah, do you expect that this process will be repeated for the next 2 years? These are 3-year grants, so, or are the grants going to be funded pursuant to these applications for the next 3 years?
So it would be, we were envisioning or expecting a 1 3-year grant period. So we would do this once, and then those are the grantees, and they would have 3 years to spend down the funds and operate those projects. So it would be 1 application cycle.
Yeah. And right now we're operating under the assumption that it's one-time funding. Obviously, you know, anything's on the table, like we saw with HP, what in 2019 was just one-time funding, but then we received additional distributions. But at least for now, we're operating that as just a 1 3-year grant.
So you would distribute the $15 million in January?
Well, so I mean, yes, we usually break up the payments into 3 1-year payments, just so it's not actually transferring $15 million at one time, but the grant agreements that would be signed in December for that January 1 start date would be, yes, inclusive of the full 15 million minus administrative costs.
Would you expect to have all 100 QLSPs and support centers applying for this?
I don't think so, particularly because it's a competitive RFP process. My guess is it will probably be 30 to 40. Dwan and Selena and maybe Bonnie might have a better sense, but because it's a competitive grant process, I don't think we'll get all of them.
Yeah, it's really hard to guess, but not all programs do consumer debt legal assistance. So it would be hard to start up you know, an area if they are not already doing it. So yeah, I think probably between 20 and 30 would be my guess. It might be closer to 40. I don't know. It's hard to say, but maybe 20 and 40. Selena, is that your estimate too?
No caller.
I think so. And I think that's one of the questions is that at least when we were thinking about this originally, we thought the funding could be for, you know, 2 staff people or multipliers of. So, you know, an organization may want to hire an attorney and a paralegal, or an organization may say, we have a huge gap. We want to hire 3 attorneys and 2 paralegals. So I think like some flexibility around the size of the grant may be really important. Just because it really will depend on how many organizations in which geographic region really want to start projects or expand what they already do.
So if it's a one-time grant process, is the $375,000 allocated for administrative expenses adequate, too much, too little? Where do you think we'll come in on that?
I'll defer to Dwan and Bonnie on that. I won't. I think that's above my pay grade, frankly.
Yeah, it might be just enough, to tell you the truth. It's going to depend on reporting requirements and how much we expand out. But what I've seen, at least, that 5% is probably a minimum. Somewhere closer to 8-9% is probably more adequate. I mean, our 2 to 5% that we've been kind of operating under is just, it's very little. There is probably no other foundation that does it at 2 or 3%. And other government agencies are far, far more than us. The overhead is a lot more.
Thank you.
Great. Any other questions on the timing of this? I did want to point out that September 1 committee meeting has been scheduled. So that is on the books, if you will, but the November 30th committee meeting where we would ask you all to recommend the awards to the commission has not yet been scheduled. That is still TBD.
Yeah, and we do recognize this is the last meeting of executive committee for this term, and so that will be the September 1st will start the new term and the new executive committee.
Okay.
Got a resolution?
Yes. So this resolution is the same as was in the memo, and it reads, resolve that the Legal Services Trust Fund Commission Executive Committee recommends the timeline for 2023-2025 consumer debt grants as presented in staff's August 2, 2022 memo. And it is further resolved that the committee recommends that the commission delegate authority to the committee to approve the request for proposals, including scoring rubric for the consumer debt grants, and to staff to score applications in consultation with the committee.
Is that last phrase the one that we've been sort of defaulting to, consultation with the committee? I know Jim is sensitive about this. And
That's a great question. So that is language that we've used in the past. That was the language for CalHFA and for HP3. For the HP4 grants that just kind of did this process a couple weeks ago, I believe they ultimately changed that language to say delegate authority to a staff commissioner team to score applications in consultation with the committee. So I would, of course, defer to the committee on that, but the staff language has been used in the past.
my preference would be to use that language than this.
Okay. So to a staff or commissioner first, staff team. Is that the requested edit?
Well, I mean, if it's commissioners, I guess we can leave it in consultation with the committee, but okay.
Thank you. Okay, can we take a roll call on this?
I believe we need a motion in a second.
I'll move.
I'll second.
Great. Roll call. Rhinus,
Yes.
Savage,
Yes.
Schreiber, Venerelli.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Danielle. An update on our application process.
Kim, did you want to provide a quick update, or do you want me to?
We, Christian and I interviewed 6 people, 6 of the 19 or 21. 21 applicants. And we will be bringing forward at the next commission meeting the names of 3 individuals that we have want the commission to approve. What else should I say, Juan? I'm not sure what else there is to say.
No, that's it. I mean, it's the, you know, the first, you all know, it's the first time the commission itself is appointing members. So we're developing the kind of the process, and yeah, so Kim and Chris will present the recommendations. There'll be a related memo that will be posted, and then we'll have discussion at the commission meeting.
Mm-hmm.
We are entitled to appoint 2 members of the public and 2 lawyers. Or 2.
You have 4 slots, but there are only 3 vacancies. I mean, there are actually 9, but the way it got divided up, there are 3 vacancies that the commission is itself filling for the cycle. And
including
the statute,
one member of the public?
2, well, you have 2 for 2 of your 4 needs to be client eligible, but the statute doesn't make that doesn't require a certain number of attorneys versus public members. You'll see in Kim and Chris's memo, there's like a count of how many are public, how many attorneys. That's just more for your knowledge, but the statute itself doesn't require a breakdown. Christina?
Where did all these people come from? Did the different appointing entities do some outreach, or?
We all did a really good job doing outreach, and then the state bar itself launched a big social media campaign. So across all the sub entities, there are a high volume of applications.
Oh,
There, it was not easy to make a selection. There are certainly, of those who applied who have not served on the commission before, there's a lot of interest. And I think we will be holding up, the idea was Christian and Dwan, but we will be holding on to those names because those are people who could be interested in the future and I think could contribute. And, you know, we hope that Christian and I hope, and Dwan also, that, you know, you will support these three. We think they have very diverse backgrounds, but have, between the three of them, really bring in a wealth of skills and experience, you know, from working directly in legal services to doing other community work, to grant writing, to oversight. So pretty interesting. But yeah, we were really lucky to have a great group of people who were interested.
Excellent.
And I think one thing that the commission, I encourage the commission to start thinking about is, you know, there's a lot of work on this commission that perhaps having non-commissioners or commissioners that used to serve participating in some or giving them an opportunity, I think that might spread the work out. Like, for instance, I know one recommendation was for scoring of applications, perhaps there could be, you know, a panel that's not just commissioners and staff, but, you know, made of some other participants, and perhaps that could be from commissioners that have already turned off, or applicants might be interested in participating, but are not formally on the commission. And also with our rules committee work, that could be an option because it's such a heavy lift.
I mean, just looking at this screen, there's a lot of years of experience, and I think that it would be great if we could do some mentoring also. I mean, because then the next year there are more people who've been on for years, like Bonishev, Christian, I think is soon. We're losing a lot of history, and so I think some sort of mentoring or ex officio kind of positions, I think, could be helpful to the commission.
But I think it's great that the commission is getting this level of attention, and like there's a little bit of competition, because there have been some years that we couldn't even fill the full 24 because we didn't have applications. So this is great that we have so many qualified applications.
I think that's it till next week.
Well, Kim, let me ask you, do you think that some sort of mentoring program by those who are leaving the commission for those who are just joining it could be formalized?
Well, I mean, I would support that. I think I leave that to the staff to figure it out. I mean, I don't want to burden them with creating yet another program, but I think I think it'd be a good idea. I mean, Rich, you could take a stab at it if you want.
No, I'd be happy
think
to. I'd be very happy to do it. When Will
Yeah.
came up here for the last commission meeting, he was sort of asking why there isn't such a program, and you know, institutional legacies get lost very easily, and
Yeah.
it took me years to understand what we do. So
Yeah, I mean,
if that could be short circuited, it would help the commission to be more effective.
right. I mean, Christina, what do you think?
Yeah, I think it would be helpful. I mean, for me, just like you all, I've been around for years, and it's just so different. It's so different the way it's run now, for the better, I would say, for sure. So, you know, I don't know how important it is to have my institutional knowledge from, you know, 12 years ago or whatever it was, but certainly some of that I think would be helpful. But, you know, you learn, you do it, you get on the commission and you learn at the same time. So if there's interest, great.
Yeah, I think the historical, it is important. And Christina, for partnership, I know that they're, for that committee, they're thinking about like looking back at some of the, you know, the requirements and like funding and all that stuff. So having the institutional knowledge or would be helpful. I mean, you chaired that committee for some years.
That is true. I guess like, well, you get this idea, well, we tried that 12 years ago and this is what happened, right?
Okay, let's go to a preview of
Okay.
the upcoming meeting.
Yes, let me share my screen, share the agenda. Okay, so can you see my screen here? This is the agenda.
Yeah.
And I have to say, it's a pretty heavy, oh wait, sorry, this is not the right agenda. Give me a second to pull up. Okay, you see, I might need to make it larger. So this is a pretty heavy agenda. Our August meeting is usually packed. Okay, so with the recent developments, Elizabeth and I are going to provide kind of that LRAP update. We'll give an update on CalFHA grants, and we're going to actually, for item 4C, the staff update and IOTA revenue, spend a little bit more time on that because I don't know if you recalled, I sent an email out a few weeks ago about Wells Fargo potentially dropping out a leadership bank program. The really great news is a couple of days ago, they did contact us and said that they're going to remain. So we're okay for now, but this has brought up kind of internal discussions and like it's been difficult the last few weeks being so like kind of reactionary when a bank drops out of the leadership program. Like I think we should be a little bit more proactive in having a strategy behind this. One of the things that Elizabeth and I are considering that we would like to move forward with starting this year and then really the bulk of the work into next year is looking at our, we've had now about 4 years of experience with the Leadership Brain program, really looking at all the requirements of the Leadership Brain program and thinking, are there ways that we can improve them? Are there certain criteria and requirements that we would like to integrate now? One thing that might be that might be a good thing to do is perhaps integrating some social responsibility kind of criteria within our Leadership Brain program, perhaps some diversity inclusion, but also we also want to, how do we promote this program, right? And I think that's where we could do a better job. What we did a couple of weeks ago was email the commission. We emailed some of our other networks to see if somebody kind of knew anybody at Wells Fargo that can reach out to us. We'd like to have, again, a little bit more strategy behind that. Like, and I don't know if this is possible. We're going to have to staff, ask OGC to do a little bit of research on us to see if there are any kind of advertising prohibition, but it would be nice to be able to say to like an attorney, like, these are our list of leadership bank programs. We encourage you to bank with these programs because this is the impact you would have in California. I don't know if that's possible, but these are some of the things that Elizabeth and I and Michael have been talking about, really just to be less reactionary when something like this happens. And Rich, I think you have your hand up.
Yeah, just a couple of questions. How many banks have been enrolled are enrolled presently in the leadership program?
It's less than a dozen. It's not that many. We have 180 institutions that hold IOLTA accounts, but really our top 10 banks hold, like, I want to say it's like 85% of deposits. So we're really talking about like really targeting these like 10 or 12 kind of banks to encourage them to remain in the leadership bank program if they're not already.
That leads to my second question. We have what's called a concentration issue. Too much of our IOLTA contributions come from too few banks. And it seems to me that we ought to be thinking about a policy that would help us to dilute the importance of any one of those banks so that if we lose one, it doesn't cause us any concern. Right now, I'm glad to hear that Wells is staying on the team, but if they were to withdraw, it does cause concern. And
Yeah.
I think that the policy ought to be aimed at reducing the importance of any one bank.
Well, and the other tricky thing is the IOLTA statute, it regulates attorneys and not banks.
Right.
We actually don't have like authority over banks. I mean, I can't remember. It's a different regulatory entity. So that's why we negotiate with them. What we can do if a bank is like not providing interest rates at a certain level that's like required. I'm not talking about leadership bank, but just generally, we can let the attorneys know, hey, you're banking with an institution that's not, can you please move your accounts? But in terms of like, we don't have much teeth with our banks. So that's why we think, because we don't have much teeth, maybe we have to dangle a carrot. Say, and this is where we need to do more research about advertising. and see whether we could say, hey, listen, we do have power, right? We have, all of these attorneys that if we called on them, we know X amount would move their account. And that might be the carrot that I don't know if this is possible. This is all to say that we would like Elizabeth and I to kind of do a lot of research, start up a working group, see what our options are, and then have a strategy behind it.
Well, you've got two commissioners who are bankers, and I would hope you'd call on them to help formulate the policies to do what you want to do.
No, absolutely, absolutely. And when we reached out to our networks, we definitely reached out to, Jeff and Tammy, and we reached out to, some of the other organizations that might have people. What we think happened is someone actually did make a call for us, because we heard from Wells Fargo that they were going to be part of the Leadership Bank program. We're in the process of setting up a meeting to talk with them, with our business contact, and then all of a sudden we got an email saying we're going to remain. I think something happened. I don't know exactly who talked to who, but I think something definitely positive happened because they decided to stay in. We don't know how long they're going to stay in though. So this is where we're going to run some projections to give the commission a sense of if say, and it's not just Wells Fargo, but some of our other Leadership Bank programs, if they did drop out in the next 6 months, what is that going to do to our IELTS revenue projections? If they stay in, what is that going to do? And the other bit of news that Michael's going to share is, so the Federal Reserve, and I don't know if you all have been following, but they met a couple days ago and they raised interest rates by 75 basis points. When we met last time, our projection was only based on a 50 basis point increase. So Michael has actually been working to kind of revise those numbers. I haven't seen them myself, but we'll be sharing them next week to see, the rising, interest rates are better than what we thought. However, we didn't anticipate that Leadership Bank's program would be dropping out as quickly. I mean, Michael had built into the projections that there's going to be, I think, a 35% dip, but we didn't anticipate Wells Fargo. So we're going to do a couple projections, worst case scenario, so that you all can see. Christina?
Do the banks, it's kind of twofold, do the banks get CRA credit for having these? And is there any option of working with the regulators to somehow give them more CRA credit? Or
yeah, so they do get CRA credit, and we've never explored that other option that you just said, and that's one of the things Elizabeth and I have been talking about. Is there something more that we can do? We haven't really investigated. And so we think this is a good time to do it as interest rates are going up. And the other thing is we want to prepare because that someday they are going to be going down again. Right now, the commission sets what's the established compliance rate, which is 68 basis point or 0.68% or whatever is low. It's some formula. That's in the commission's discretion. I think we're probably at a time where we might want to look at that compliance rate, ECR, and think about raising it in anticipation of one day rates will be dropping and perhaps we can eke out a little bit more money. It has to be within a certain reasonable amount, but I think that ECR rate was established at least 10 years ago. I think around 2008. It's been a while now, and so maybe now the market speaks to it being higher. I don't know, but that's the type of analysis that we need to do.
Yeah, I'm a former banker in a prior life for little community banks, and I can tell you if the regulators tell them to do it, a lot of them will do it.
So
that kind of pressure.
We need to be calling on you for assistance then, because this is all very technical, and like Jeff and Tammy have been really helpful. We also have an independent consultant that we work with that works with all the major states to kind of get a lay of the land of what else is happening in other states. But this is something like the last few years we've invested more staff in our IELTS compliance, and that's we've invested more staff to work with, like, as interest rates go up, we're like prepared to gear up as they go down, and I think it's a good investment because as you've seen, like our shortfall during the pandemic wasn't as dramatic as we had originally thought. So I think the staffing investment is good. Okay, any other comments or questions? If not, I'll move on to the, okay. And then under the business item, so Kim and Chris will go over again their nominations to the Trust Fund Commission. Crystal is going to go through the recommendation from Partnership Grant Committee for 2023 funding. Usually this agenda item is in July, but the last 2 years it's been in August, and we're still on target because once the commission decides, we pass that along to Judicial Council, and they have a meeting later this year to approve that. Then item C and D deal with IELTS and EF eligibility. So the big item for this meeting is to approve IELTS and EF eligibility, because you meet next Friday. That following Monday, the staff worked on running the IELTS formula and releasing budget programs. So this is really, really important. And then Danielle will then talk about what she just went over right now, the timeline, delegation of authority for the consumer debt legal assistance money. And then we have a really big agenda item for the rules committee. It's several topics that they have been working on for the last year and a half that we really need to get commission approval, because we would like to take them to the Board of Trustees in November. And now the board has changed kind of its processes in terms of rulemaking. They're only dealing with considerations of rules and sending out for public comment at 2 meetings. That's the November meeting and the May meeting. So we really want to get in there at the November meeting so that we don't have to wait until May. But the rules committee has been working very hard on these topics. What I'm going to ask staff to do is maybe not get into like the weeds so much. Everybody will have like the memos. The memos are really complicated. They're very nuanced. The working groups have put a lot of time and effort into each of these memos, but we'll provide more of a high level kind of presentation for these topics. But that's going to take just item F, I expect will take between 45 and an hour. And then Chris is going to talk about the timeline, delegation of authority from the Homelessness Prevention 4 grants. And then there's one small request from a program to revise deliverables. But it is a very, very packed agenda. And then we're going to end with liaison reports from Selena and Bonnie.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, we finished our agenda for today. Right.
And before we close, I just want to take this opportunity because this is the last XCOM meeting of the 2021-2020 to just thank you all for your incredible kind of dedication to this committee. You know, like I think 3 or 4 years ago, XCOM only met twice, and then it moved to 4 meetings. And this year, already you've had 6 meetings. I was counting, and there's going to be 2 more. And it's because some of these extra streams of funding, instead of starting a new committee, XCOM you have so graciously taken it on. And so this committee feels like, you know, 2 committees, if not 3, because of the amount of work and funding that has come through this committee. So I just want to personally thank you all, and Chris as well, and he couldn't be here today, for kind of really your commitment and your dedication to this work, to being always so accessible to staff, and just being so kind of fun and nice to work with.
Thank you. That was very kind of you. Thank you. These 3 faces, I think, won't be here for the coming meetings.
Yeah.
Anyhow, it's been great working with you, and we'll, I think, have some words about that at our last commission meeting. So thank you all.
Thank you all. See you next week then.
Okay,
All right.
bye. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.